Scene opens with a dimly lit, crime-ridden city at night. Sirens echo in the distance, a backdrop to the haunting quiet of an empty street. A solitary figure emerges from the shadows, leaving behind only a cold, suffocating dread. Elliot Grayson. He'd seen countless murders, each one worse than the last. But this was something different. A body, carefully positioned, eyes wide open, staring into the void. There was a message, but it was in a language only the killer understood. "Another one," Grayson muttered, barely a whisper. "Another message for us." It wasn't just the brutality that struck him. It was the precision. The body had been arranged, as if staged for an audience, and there was no trace of the killer. No footprint, no hair, no fibers, just a cryptic symbol drawn on the victim's hand. A symbol that would haunt Grayson for years to come. Cut to the streets of the city, people moving quickly, avoiding eye contact. Rumors spread like wildfire. News anchors began their broadcasts with trembling voices. The city is on edge. A killer is among us, and no one knows who they are or where they will strike next. Each murder was more chilling than the last. No one was safe. The killer, who the media began to call the Phantom Reaper, left nothing but destruction behind. A series of baffling deaths, each more meticulous than the last, without any discernible pattern. The authorities were grasping at straws, and the public's fear was growing by the day. Mara Calloway, a determined investigative journalist, sits at her desk. She's been receiving anonymous letters that predicted each of the murders before they happened. Her fingers tremble as she opens the latest one. The latest letter arrived without warning. "The game begins tonight. The end is near. You'll know when it happens." She looked at the cryptic symbol again, the same symbol the killer left behind. It had been there in each murder. The same one, etched on every victim's body. But what did it mean? Grayson and Calloway meet under the flickering light of a coffee shop. Their eyes meet with an unspoken understanding. Grayson had been watching her for days, unsure whether she was part of the story or if she was the next victim. But when he read her latest article detailing the killer's predictable pattern, he knew they needed to work together. "We're dealing with someone who knows the city, someone who studies us," Grayson said, his voice tinged with frustration. "But that symbol is not just a random design. It's a calling card." Calloway nodded, her mind racing. "I've seen it before. Years ago. A case no one ever solved. It's tied to the murders from decades ago. But why now?" They dig deeper into old cold cases. Grayson pulls up files from a previous investigation, showing an eerily similar set of killings from 20 years ago. There it was again, the symbol, the same one, reappearing after years of silence. What was the connection? Who had been silent all this time, only to resurface now? Grayson and Calloway begin receiving disturbing messages, anonymously, of course. Each letter was more personal, more chilling. The killer's obsession with them was growing. "Do you think you can stop me?" The latest letter read. "I've been playing this game for longer than you realize. You should have never started digging." But there was a twist. The symbol had changed. The killer was evolving. Grayson stares at the letter, and then it hits him. The killer was mimicking a famous unsolved case from years ago. But why this particular case? Why did the symbol change now? He met Calloway at the crime scene, where a new body had been found. This time, it wasn't just a victim, it was a message. The body had been positioned facing a building, the very building where the first victim was discovered. There was no obvious connection, but the killer was toying with them. "Why this building? Why this place?" Grayson asked. Calloway's eyes narrowed. "Because it's where it all started." As the investigation progresses, Grayson and Calloway uncover something that could change everything. A connection to the original case. An officer who had been part of the investigation, now long retired. But they were too late. The officer had disappeared, and the lead grew colder with each passing day. The killer was getting bolder. The city was on the brink of chaos. And then it happened. The Phantom Reaper sent a message, a personal challenge. "I'm waiting for you. Come find me, or I'll find you first." Grayson knew it was a trap, But they had no choice. The killer wanted them to chase. And so they did. They arrived at an abandoned building on the edge of town. The tension was suffocating. They knew the killer was close. They could feel it in their bones. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Shadows moved. And there, standing in front of them, was the Phantom Reaper. It wasn't the monster they expected. No, it was worse. It was someone they knew. Someone they had trusted. Grayson's eyes widened in disbelief. The killer, the one who had haunted the city for years, was someone he had worked with. A fellow detective who had been manipulating the investigation from the inside. "You never understood," the killer sneered. "I wasn't just killing people. I was creating art. And you're my masterpiece." The final showdown was brutal. The truth, once buried in shadows, was exposed in the harsh light of justice. Grayson fought with everything he had, knowing that the Phantom Reaper had to be stopped. And when the dust finally settled, the killer was brought to justice. But as Grayson stood over the now-captured killer, he realized something chilling. There would always be another game, another player, waiting in the shadows. The war was far from over. Calloway closed the case, but it was clear that this story would never be finished. There would always be a new twist, a new unsolved case. The Phantom Reaper may have been captured, but the darkness, much like the city, would always be there, lurking. Grayson sits in his dimly lit office, the weight of the case pressing down on him. The killer has been captured, but something doesn't sit right. His eyes catch a new letter on his desk, the familiar cryptic symbol stamped at the top. He opens it slowly, his breath caught in his throat. The letter reads, "You think you've won, detective, but I'm not the last. I've been watching you, watching her, and now you'll never escape the truth. I've planted seeds in your mind, seeds that will grow. You'll never stop searching for me. You'll never find peace." Grayson's hand shakes, his gut twists. This wasn't over. The killer was gone, but the game was far from finished. Weeks have passed since the killer's capture. The city is breathing a collective sigh of relief, but something in Grayson won't let him rest. Late at night, he combs through old case files again, searching for any hint of a pattern he missed. Mara Calloway had moved on, writing a piece about the killer's capture. But she too couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The old case files stared back at them with new eyes. The cryptic symbol had been a key all along, but it wasn't the Phantom Reapers alone. Someone else had been pulling the strings from the shadows. A mentor, a legacy. The killer hadn't been working alone. Grayson finally pieces it together, the killings, the letters, the odd patterns. The Phantom Reaper wasn't just a serial killer. He had been training someone. Grayson and Calloway meet with the only surviving witness of the original unsolved case. A woman, now old and frail, whose memories have been buried by years of trauma. As they sit across from her, she trembles at the sight of the symbol, the one she had seen etched into the walls all those years ago. She whispers, "He's not gone. The mentor, he's still out there. I saw him the night I was taken. I saw him watching me." The realization hits both Grayson and Calloway at once. The Phantom Reaper had never been alone. Someone else, someone even more dangerous, had been orchestrating the entire thing. As Grayson digs deeper into the original case, an old, abandoned case file catches his eye. A detective who had vanished mysteriously years ago, presumed dead. The name? Richard Vance. Vance had been a part of the original investigation but was found dead under mysterious circumstances shortly after. Grayson is stunned when he uncovers the link. Vance had been a mentor to the Phantom Reaper, and it was Vance's death that had sent his protege on a spree of killings to finish what Vance had started. But there was more. Vance had kept a journal, hidden away in a locked drawer. Grayson finds it, and within its pages, a chilling confession. "I have trained him to be perfect. He will carry on even when I'm gone. The city will never be free of him." The killer, though caught, has been eerily calm. No signs of guilt, no remorse. Grayson begins to wonder if something deeper is at play, something beyond what they could understand. And then, a shock. A guard reports that the Phantom Reaper is missing from his cell. The prison has been breached. Someone had helped him escape. Desperation sets in. The city is in panic again, but now the Phantom Reaper has an accomplice. Someone who had orchestrated the escape and was pulling the strings from behind bars. As Grayson races against the clock, another message arrives. "I told you, detective. You'll never stop me." Grayson and Calloway follow the trail into the depths of the city's underworld, finding themselves at the center of a conspiracy that has been hiding in plain sight. The corruption runs deeper than they ever imagined. They find evidence of an underground ring of former law enforcement officers, led by Richard Vance. The real shock, however, comes when they uncover a file with names and locations. Grayson's name is at the top. The Phantom Reaper wasn't targeting random victims. He was targeting people who had ties to Vance's past, people who knew too much. Calloway is suddenly silent, looking at Grayson with wide eyes. You were part of this, weren't you? You were one of them." Grayson hesitates, his own past coming back to haunt him. But he shakes his head, a heavy burden lifting from his chest. "No, they tried to pull me in, but I walked away." Grayson and Calloway close in on the Phantom Reaper's hideout, a dilapidated mansion hidden deep in the city's outskirts. The tension is unbearable, the stakes higher than ever. As they breach the front door, a chilling laugh echoes through the halls. The Phantom Reaper, now a shadow of his former self, sits in the dark, watching them approach. "You're too late," he sneers, a grin spreading across his face. "This game ends when I say it ends." But just as Grayson moves in to apprehend him, a twist no one expected. The accomplice, the real mastermind, steps out from the shadows. Richard Vance. Vance has been orchestrating everything from the beginning, playing both sides of the law, pulling strings from behind the scenes. The Phantom Reaper was never the true threat. Vance was the puppet master, using him to fulfill his twisted vision. The final confrontation is brutal. Grayson faces off against Vance, the true mastermind behind the killings. But Vance is not the man Grayson once knew. He's a monster now, consumed by power, controlling everyone in his wake. As they fight, Vance reveals his ultimate plan. He had been orchestrating the murders to cover up his own dirty secrets, framing innocent people while taking down anyone who threatened his empire. But Grayson, driven by years of obsession and a thirst for justice, manages to expose the truth. Vance is arrested, and with his capture, the city breathes a final sigh of relief. The true mastermind is caught, and for the first time in years, there is closure. Grayson stands at the edge of the city, looking out over the skyline. The case is closed, but the scars will remain forever. Calloway approaches, handing him the last piece of evidence, the final letter from the Phantom Reaper. The letter is simple. "You may have one, but I will always be watching." But Grayson doesn't flinch. He's done. The case is over. And for the first time in years, he feels something he hasn't allowed himself to feel. Peace. The camera lingers on Grayson's face as the wind blows through the city, carrying with it the faintest whisper of the Phantom Reaper's legacy. Grayson and Calloway have just returned to the city after Vance's arrest. But as they try to rebuild their lives, the weight of their shared obsession continues to haunt them. Grayson receives an unexpected call, an anonymous tip about another murder. The body, arranged with precision, bears the same cryptic symbol. The Phantom Reaper is back, or so they think. Grayson's pulse quickens. How is this possible? Vance is behind bars. Calloway stares at the crime scene photos, her face pale. This doesn't make sense. The symbol, it's different. The killer is using the same pattern, but they've changed the design slightly. It's not just a copycat, it's something else. The realization hits them. Vance's arrest wasn't the end of the nightmare. There's someone else out there, someone who learned from the original Phantom Reaper, someone who is now carrying on the work. As Grayson and Calloway investigate, they uncover something even more chilling. An old videotape, buried deep in the archives, showing Richard Vance's original interviews with the Phantom Reaper. But what stands out is a brief moment where Vance mentions his successor. Grayson's hand trembles as he watches the tape. Vance's eyes glint with a dark satisfaction. "When I am gone, he will carry on my work." and he will be better than I ever was. The chilling realization sets in: Vance was never truly the mastermind. He was a tool, a figurehead serving a darker force behind the scenes. The successor is not only alive but has now taken up the mantle, learning from the true horrors of Vance's design. As the investigation continues, Grayson and Calloway delve deeper into the possibility of an insider, someone in law enforcement who may have helped the new killer escape detection. They discover that someone close to them is involved, someone they had trusted. A former colleague, now a private investigator, is found to be assisting the new killer. Grayson confronts him in a tense meeting. "You don't understand, Elliot," the private investigator, David, says with a hollow gaze. "This isn't just about murder. This is about creating something bigger. This is about power. You never saw it, but I did. The Phantom Reaper was a stepping stone. We are creating something that will never be caught, never be stopped." Grayson's heart pounds as David's words echo in his mind. The murderer they were chasing wasn't a random force. It was part of a greater, insidious plan that stretched much farther than they ever realized. The investigation leads Grayson and Calloway to an unexpected source: the Phantom Reaper's original journal. When they decode the final pages, they uncover a horrifying truth. The killer's true goal was never just chaos. It was an experiment in control. The journal details how the killer, under Vance's guidance, carefully manipulated the media, the public, and even the police. The murders weren't just about death. They were about controlling the narrative, turning everyone into pawns in the killer's game. There is no such thing as a hero. One chilling passage reads, "Everyone has a breaking point. They just need the right push." The killer had been studying them all, watching how they reacted, knowing exactly how far they could go before breaking. They weren't just trying to kill. They were crafting the ultimate psychological masterpiece. Grayson and Calloway find a thread that leads them to an even darker place: a hidden network of individuals who've been following the Phantom Reaper's legacy. The successor, it turns out, is not acting alone. He has gathered a following, people who believe in the killer's philosophy. The network goes deep, with fingers reaching into every part of the city's underworld. The group believes that they are the chosen few, that they will be the ones to reshape society through chaos, through destruction, by following in the footsteps of the Phantom Reaper. Grayson and Calloway infiltrate the group, but just as they get close to unraveling the network, they're caught in a trap. The leader of the group, someone they never expected, is revealed to be none other than the original detective from the case, Richard Vance's first protege, now known only as the Architect. The Architect, as he is known, reveals the full extent of his plan in a chilling monologue. He sits at the center of a dark room, surrounded by images of the original killings, the media coverage, and the names of every individual he's manipulated. "The game was never about murder," the Architect says, his voice calm, almost peaceful. "It was about building the perfect machine. You see, I've learned everything from Vance, and now I'm taking it further. You think this city will ever be the same again? The truth is, the people of this city will never be able to stop thinking about what they've seen. They will carry this fear with them forever." Grayson, desperate to stop the Architect before he can complete his twisted plan, lunges toward him. But the Architect smiles darkly and presses a button on his desk. The walls around them begin to close in, and the room turns into a deadly trap. But in a shocking twist, Calloway makes the ultimate sacrifice, pushing Grayson out of the way and taking the full brunt of the trap to save him. She collapses, her blood staining the floor as Grayson watches in horror. Grayson, now enraged and heartbroken, faces off with the Architect in a final, brutal confrontation. It's a fight not just for survival but for justice, for the lives lost, for the pain caused, and for Calloway's sacrifice. The Architect taunts him, trying to break his spirit, but Grayson's resolve only strengthens. In a final act of defiance, Grayson overpowers the Architect, finally bringing him to justice. The twisted legacy of the Phantom Reaper and his followers is destroyed, but at a terrible cost. Grayson stands over the wreckage of the Architect's operation, the pieces of the puzzle finally fitting together. But as he looks down at Calloway's lifeless body, the weight of everything hits him. Justice has been served, but the price has been more than he ever could have imagined. He picks up the last letter, the one Calloway had been reading when she was caught in the trap. It's signed with the cryptic symbol, but this time, there's a final, haunting message. You may have won, detective, but you'll never escape the game. It's inside you now. Grayson drops the letter, his hand shaking. The city may be free of the killer, but in the silence, he realizes he will never be free of the game. Months have passed since the architect's capture, but the trauma lingers in Grayson's mind like an echo that refuses to fade. He's back at his desk, surrounded by case files, but every page feels like it's staring back at him, accusing him of not doing enough. One night, as he reviews the last of the architect's notes, he notices something strange. A small, nearly invisible series of numbers written in the corner of a page. At first, it seems like a mistake, but then he realizes it's a code. Desperately, he decodes it, and the message that appears is simple. The end is near. Grayson's pulse quickens. How could this be possible? The architect was behind bars. There was no one left to manipulate the city. Or was there? Grayson and Calloway's investigation takes a dark turn when they revisit a former victim's family, hoping for any leads they might have missed. The family's daughter, who had been traumatized during the murder, has been in a psych ward for years. But now, she's speaking again, and she claims to have seen someone in her nightmares, someone she recognizes. He never left, she whispers, her voice shaking. He's still watching. He's always been there. He's never left me. The realization is chilling. The architect's influence didn't die with his arrest. His cult-like following, the deep web of people he'd trained and influenced, continues to haunt the city from the shadows. Grayson's mind races. Could this be the true extent of the architect's plan? To leave a legacy of terror in the minds of those he had manipulated? Grayson digs deeper into the architect's cult, following leads that take him into the darkest corners of the city's criminal underworld. As the investigation grows more dangerous, it becomes clear that this isn't just about a killer or a psychopath anymore. Grayson and Calloway confront a key member of the group, a woman named Alina who had once been a trusted lieutenant in the architect's circle. She's been hiding in plain sight, pretending to be a victim, but in reality, she's been orchestrating a new wave of killings. In a tense confrontation, Alina admits that the architect's ideology has taken root in a new generation of killers. You think you stopped him, detective? You think the architect was the end of it? He was just the beginning. His followers are everywhere, and we will continue his work until the city is consumed. Grayson and Calloway's investigation leads them to a chilling discovery. A hidden network of operatives, some of them law enforcement officers, others high-ranking city officials, all secretly working to continue the legacy of the Phantom Reaper. The realization sinks in, the city itself is corrupt, with the very people sworn to protect it now part of the killer's plan. In a tense moment, Grayson receives a message from an anonymous source, telling him that the final phase of the architect's plan is about to unfold. A large-scale attack is planned for the anniversary of the first murder, a symbolic date in the architect's twisted calendar. As the clock ticks down, Grayson and Calloway rush to uncover the full scope of the plot. They begin connecting the dots, but the more they learn, the more it seems like they're always one step behind. Every lead leads to more danger, more betrayal. With the city in chaos, Grayson and Calloway discover a shocking twist. A new killer has emerged, seemingly unrelated to the architect or his cult, yet the pattern is unmistakable. The murders follow the same chilling tactics as the original Phantom Reaper, and this new killer seems to be taunting Grayson directly. But as they dig deeper, Grayson uncovers a devastating truth. The new killer is someone he knows personally, his own partner, Calloway. The twist leaves Grayson reeling. Why? He demands, his voice breaking as he faces her in an abandoned building. Calloway's face is unreadable, but then a small, twisted smile forms. You didn't know, did you? You never saw it coming. I was never on your side, detective. You've been playing right into my hands all along. It turns out that Calloway had been part of the architect's plan from the beginning. She was the one feeding him information, setting Grayson up for his downfall, and orchestrating a final game where Grayson would have to confront his deepest fears and face her, the last piece in the puzzle. Grayson stands, stunned and betrayed, staring at Calloway. Her revelation cuts deeper than any wound he's endured. The woman he had trusted, fought alongside, and shared his deepest thoughts with, was the true mastermind behind the last wave of killings. Calloway explains her motives, how she had been drawn into the architect's twisted world before Grayson ever came into the picture. Her obsession with the case, the killer's mind games, had taken her down a darker path than even Grayson could have imagined. She was both a victim and a perpetrator, manipulating Grayson and the investigation from within, feeding off the chaos. But Grayson refuses to let her win. In an emotional confrontation, he finally sees through her lies. He remembers the one thing she had said to him earlier in the case, the one thing that had never made sense before: "You'll never stop me." Now Grayson knows the truth. It was never about the killer. It was always about the control. And in the end, he'd been the one playing into their game. In the final confrontation, Grayson and Calloway engage in a brutal psychological and physical battle. She reveals that the murders weren't about killing. It was about shaping Grayson into the perfect opponent, one who would face her in a battle of wits, with the entire city as the ultimate prize. With everything on the line, Grayson manages to turn the tables. He uses Calloway's own manipulations against her, exposing her to the very people she had deceived and controlling the narrative to his advantage. With one final, heart-wrenching move, he brings her to justice. Grayson watches as she is taken away, her face showing no remorse, only the cold, calculated expression of someone who had been playing a game that only she understood. As the authorities lead her out of the room, Grayson breathes a sigh of relief, but it's a hollow victory. The cost has been too high. With the case closed, Grayson sits alone in his office, staring out the window at the now quiet city. The haunting images of the Phantom Reaper and Calloway's betrayal linger in his mind. But as the sun rises, Grayson realizes one thing: justice has been served, not just in the city, but in his own soul. He may never fully recover from the scars this case left on him, but for the first time, he feels like he's truly free. The nightmare is over. The games have ended. Stay tuned for more chilling cases on Cold Case Chronicles, where the truth is always darker than fiction.